Hello everyone, today we are preparing for High Evolutionary's release, and with High Evolutionary comes a lot of affliction style decks that are going to negatively impact your cards. And what better card to counteract that than Luke Cage, who has the ability that your cards can't have their power reduced. This is going to take away some of High Evolutionary's upside, but depending on how people are building High Evolutionary, this may not be the only thing needed to be able to counteract it. But I do think it is a good starting space. And Cerebro 2 is one of those that is always incredibly consistent. It offers just enough disruption, just enough reach, just enough lockdown components to be able to be fairly competitive in most matches. Now, it's not one that's going to beat every deck's high roll, but it is very consistent and can compete with a lot of decks in a lot of different ways. And so I've had pretty decent success with this deck against just about everything that I'm facing right now in the meta, namely like lockdown style decks that want to hit you with a Spider-Man, that want to use a Professor X, that want to use a Storm, because you're going to be able to continue growing your power over time in those lanes, and that makes it really hard for them to guarantee a lockdown, which is what those decks typically really need. Now, Enchanters can be kind of detrimental to this list, but with that, we have Goose. Goose is one of those cards that it's going to restrict the opponent from playing high-cost cards there, and then with that, the only way that the opponent is going to be able to play an Enchantress into that lane is if they have a Zabu or a Cerebro on the board. And a lot of times you're not going to float your Cerebro too early, and so if you need to drop initiative, you usually can, or you just play them in a lane that is separate from the Blue Marvel, and you're typically going to be fine. And so I don't think this deck needs a lot of introduction. You can build this a lot of different ways. I think this is one of the more flexible ways. It protects you from negative locational RNG. Now, it doesn't protect you from everything, but it is a lot more consistent than what it used to be. And so with the very brief deck explanation out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. And before we jump over, make sure to stick around because I'm going to be covering High Evolutionary tonight, and I think it's going to be one of the most unique cards that's going to create an entire archetype around the card itself. And so definitely don't miss that one. It's going to be going live shortly after the card's release. And so with the plug out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, first up we have Wino, and hopefully they've had a couple of glasses by now so that we can easily sweep these cubes. Now, we start off with our Goose, which is really restrictive if they're running any kind of wave or just big guys deck. Now, if they're running like a Kitty Pryde bounce, it doesn't really help us at all. Now, something that does help us quite a bit is the Brood in the Raft location, which is going to be phenomenal. We're going to be able to fully cap it out next turn, and I think that should be before they're able to. Now, if they do 2 cards this turn, they might be able to do 2 cards next turn as well. But I think we have at least a decent shot of competing for it. So they had the Bast, they played Mysterio out early, so it looks like a bounce deck. It looks like a Kitty Pryde, a Hit Monkey deck. But I can't tell you the last time I wanted to play Mysterio out early, unless they have 3 1-cost cards, like Kitty Pryde, Iceman, and then another 1-cost to completely cap this location out. Maybe they did that just to get the free Raft resource. If they can't cap it out, then we will get it once Brood triggers. They do snap into it, so I assume that they have the 3 1-costs. That would be the only way I could really explain the Mysterio play on 2, rather than waiting to use it in combination or tandem with something else. Oh, wait. Okay. The Iceman and the Hood, I'm not sure what they snapped on. I'll gladly take this one. We get a massive Orca. So we could do... How do we want to navigate this one? Cart. I don't know that we want to play it because we do have our Cerebro. That's so enticing. We know that they probably have Kitty Pryde. They probably have Hit Monkey. So I think we're going to do Storm. Storm this turn. Like a Mr. Sinister and Luke Cage next turn, maybe? Into a Cerebro and a Mystique on the last turn. That's what we're going to angle towards. The Orca is massive. It is so wanted. I want to play the Orca just because it's a free 11 power minimum card. But with the Cerebro in hand and now the Mystique to go alongside it, it's definitely not the right time to utilize it. So do we do Blue Marvel here? I think we really need to make sure that we win these 2. And so I think we need to use Mr. Sinister instead of Blue Marvel. It doesn't feel fantastic, but I think that's probably the right call. Let's go with Mr. Sinister. They probably get to flood quite a bit. So the negative hood goes back down into the flood lane, and then Beast bounces all of those cards back in, so they're not competing for the flooded location at all. We know that they have 2 demons in hand now, and outside of that, I think we have a decent shot because we're going to be adding 16 power to this lane. The only problem is we have initiative. If they have an Enchantress, we're sunk. Or Orca, since we already have this lane locked down, we could just do Orca. Nah, I don't think we'll win the Collector lane. Right, there's no way we win the Collector lane. Yeah, we're just going to go Cerebro Mystique. We're going to go good old reliable, buff up our mid, buff up our left, and hope that they don't have enough reach to swing the Raft location. I assume they do at least 1 demon, maybe both. Maybe a demon and a hit monkey, but I don't think they have much reach outside of that in that location. They gave us the good fist bump. We don't know if they have Enchantress, but no, they don't. They don't quite have it. We are able to hold down the middle location. We hold down the left lane. The burst potential of dropping Cerebro and Mystique on the last turn is just so clutch. And so we will gladly take the 4 cubes against Wino. They had 1 too many glasses. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have a Rivo Thriller. And the first location is the Space Throne, which is going to be tough to win, considering we don't really have things that go tall. Now, we could get a Storm. We can end up storming that location. That way we can play multiple cards there. Danger Room's a little bit dangerous to play into. I'm going to go ahead and play Goose into the far right lane. There's a small chance that that ends up acting like a pseudo Professor X. If it turns out to be the location that 1, 2, and 3 cost cards can't be played into, that prohibits those, and then Goose prohibits the higher end of the spectrum. Now, a Wasp or something bigger than that, of course, can be played there. So they play a Nebula. That's going to continue to grow, which is a little bit of an issue. Let's go ahead and do Iceman to stop it from gaining. We're going to do Mr. Fantastic into middle. If the 1 gets destroyed, we at least get 1 to remain there. And I haven't seen Luke Cage since I put this deck together. He's been vibing at the bottom of the deck for a minimum of, what is that, 6 games now? I haven't seen, like, not even on the last turn have I drawn him. So they do storm the left location for us. So that is good. We know that this is probably some kind of, we just had to badmouth him a little bit, you know, let him know that we mean business. They most likely have some kind of lockdown style deck. Seeing what we're seeing, it is most likely some kind of pretty heavy lockdown. I mean, I expect a Spider-Man, I expect a Professor X somewhere in their deck, which can be pretty tough to deal with. I assume they would probably do Spider-Man or Professor X into the Nebula lane. Actually, no, they can't do either because of our Goose. Perfect. They do have Daredevil, so they are going to be looking for a potential Professor X lockdown. Now, unfortunately, we're going to gamble with our Blue Marvel here. We can't play Blue Marvel into the Goose lane. It is what it is. Let's see. They could have a Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom can go wide to put 5 power into the Danger Room guaranteed, and 5 in the flooded lane, bumping it up to 7. They can't do Spider-Man or Professor X into the Goose lane, so I think that is going to be protecting us quite a bit. We have initiative, so they have to decide whether it's worth it to try to sneak in. Actually, they could do a Spider-Man there, right? Then it wouldn't really matter. The Enchantress, wow. The Enchantress counter right off the bat. Okay, and they lose their Enchantress. Our Blue Marvel sticks. And so that actually breaks the Cerebro bonus as well. I mean, Xandar was going to break it anyways. But that's interesting. I haven't necessarily ever had that scenario come up. We have Luke Cage, so we could do something like this, like Hazmat. Hazmat would allow us to potentially tie the flooded lane. That's if he sticks here. We don't know if he does. That's what we're going to lock in. I'm going to gamble one more time. We've had pretty good luck in Danger Room this game. I assume this is a Dr. Doom that comes down into the Danger Room. So as long as we can win one of the other 2, then we should be okay. The Hazmat allows us to tie the left lane. They win the right lane by 2. We win mid by 4, courtesy of some phenomenal danger room luck. I don't think I've ever had a game where none of my cards got destroyed in the danger room. Had their Enchantress stuck here, we would have lost that one hands down. We will absolutely take the 2 cubes. Sometimes we take luck, you guys. We're going to go ahead and take the 2 cubes and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Dr. Wheezing. Sinister London is the first location, which is beautiful. Quadruple Cerebro, yes please. We will take it. I think we start out with Iceman though. We start out with Iceman. It doesn't really matter if we duplicate too many of our cards, but the disruption from Iceman, I think I'm looking forward to. The Nightcrawler is a second one, and then maybe we even storm the location. Maybe we storm Altar of Death. I don't know for sure, but we do have 3 spaces left, so we could do Blue Marvel, Cerebro, and something else. Actually, you know, let's duplicate our Goose. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, or some other silly saying. We're going to go ahead and Goose. That way they can't do anything massive, like a Hobgoblin, like a Galactus, like a Doc Ock, like anything above that range, they're not going to be able to do here. And so we do get the Goose into the Altar of Death, so they can't do any big cards here, not that they would usually want to. 1, 2, 3, 4. That leaves 3 spaces left. I don't think we need to duplicate our Cerebro, do we? This would be 1. Blue Marvel would be 2, and then on the last turn, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. We can make it work. We're going to go ahead and do the Cerebro into the Cloning Bats. If they have an Enchantress, they're going to have to Enchantress multiple lanes. They're not going to be able to do Enchantress here. It becomes really difficult for them to take out that Cerebro without some kind of reduction. Now, they do use a Sunspot, and they get a lot of soak going on. Let's go ahead and focus on the Blue Marvel. On the last turn, we're going to buff them up all the way, and we're going to send it. All the way up. We do get the retreat, which is not surprising, knowing how restrictive these 2 lanes are for them, and how much we were going to be able to slam on the board on the last couple of turns. We will take the 1 cube. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Chalky Milk. The first location is Gamma Lab. I don't know if we're going to fight for that or not. We don't have a way to destroy anything that they play into the Gamma Lab, so maybe it's that we avoid that location. The Altar of Death is kind of tough. Maybe it's that we avoid that location. Maybe we fight for that one and nothing else. I don't know. I'm still torn. They do use a rocket first, and then this is going to be a Mysterio that came down. They will get the extra +2 from the Altar of Death. What's going to be the right move? What's going to be the right play? This is the real Mysterio. No questions asked. This is the real one. But how do we want to play this one? We do have power in the Altar of Death, which they may not be able to do. Stark Tower is also really tough for us, just in general. All right, let's send it. We're going to send it. We're going to go all in on the Gamma Lab. We're going to do 3 out of the 4 spaces and hope that they don't have a Shang-Chi. If they have a Shang-Chi, it is what it is. But with the Stark Tower lane, with Gamma Lab, it was going to be one of those games that it was just going to feel almost impossible to win outside of just giving up this location, because we'd have to win these 2. Goose is not bad here. Goose is definitely not bad in the Stark Tower location. Let's go ahead and do Goose. We'll do Luke Cage. Yeah, just in case. We're going to do Goose, Luke Cage. They won't be able to do Enchantress here. It's going to be above that Goose range, and so our ongoings are a little bit safer than they would be in other locations. We get Storm. Not that it's great for us. I mean, we could storm this location. We could... Yeah, I guess, you guys. We're going to storm this location. I'm still not 100% sold on it. We could have also used Hazmat, but... I'm going to save that for the last turn. I also want them to, if they play into the Altar of Death, it get destroyed, and so they would have to play something and move it over, do something really large. The Blue Marvel is not marvelous for us. That's not what we wanted to see at all. If we knew the Blue Marvel was going to be on the top of our deck, we would have played Hazmat last turn, but we didn't. And so we're going to go Blue Marvel here and hope for the best. If they do a Doctor Doom, that wins them this lane, but I think we can win the other 2 in the process. And so if not, maybe we can find a way. I think we're pretty comfortable in the Altar of Death location already. And so they do play Mysterio once again. They play Bass, and then is the left lane a Hitmonkey? It is a Hitmonkey. And so right now, we lose the right lane, courtesy of the real Mysterio there, but Hitmonkey does not have quite enough reach, and them playing the Mysterio early to get an additional Hulk made it where they didn't have as much burst to be able to lean their Hitmonkey in on. We get the cheeky Altar of Death victory with the Sinister Clone. We get the Blue Marvel to bump us up over in the Gamma Lab location. So very close game, but we were able to hold it out even without the Cerebro line. We will take the 2 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into one more. All right, next up we have Bob Farm. The first location is the Superflow. I'm gonna go ahead and use Goose into the unknown location. We could always storm the Superflow on 3, take away that extra energy that they're getting and we're getting, because we don't typically need extra energy. The good thing about a Cerebro 2 deck is that it's typically very easy to get as many cards as you want out onto the board. Now, the middle location is Negative Zone. If we didn't have Luke Cage, I would be storming this middle location. But since we have Luke Cage, I'm going to go on Hopium, that we draw the Luke Cage. That should single-handedly allow us to win Negative Zone without any issues. We have 1 2-power card, maybe 2 at max, and we should be able to win the Negative Zone just from Luke Cage alone. So Goose, they could use Enchantress into the Goose lane. Ooh, Dazzler is interesting here. So the Zabu the Dazzler. And so is this maybe a Khazar Zoo style build? Maybe they have a Shanna as well. Sinister London is kind of wild. We could do Brood here, but I kind of want to keep a space open. I don't know why. Let's do Brood here. We're going to go do Brood into the flooded lane. I thought about doing Mr. Sinister just to have one additional space, but I think there's no harm in doing Brood. I don't think we're going to cap out the other locations. We get Nightcrawler, we get Cerebro, or we already have Cerebro. We're going to go ahead and play Cerebro. We're still hoping for eventually getting a Luke Cage. I don't think they're going to have Enchantress because of the Dazzler. If they do use Enchantress on the Dazzler, that's so detrimental to them. We're going to have at minimum 2 of the Cerebros. That makes that left lane so massive. Even if they have something like an Ultron to easily proc the Dazzler, I don't think it's going to be enough. The Sinister London lane can put additional power into the flooded lane. But look, it's already 24. That is massive. We're going to draw additional cards. Thank you so much for using the crystal, my good friend. That makes sure that we get the Luke Cage. We have all of the resources we need to complete our master plan. We're going to go ahead and do Mr. Fantastic next turn. We're going to go ahead and do a double Mr. Fantastic. Next turn, we will... we'll do a double Mr. Fantastic. Next turn, we're going to do a Luke Cage plus a double Hazmat. And that will take away a lot of their upside, I think. Now, they're digging in their deck. They have the Zabu to reduce the cost of Crystal. I have not featured a build with Crystal because I still am not on board giving the opponent those resources. So it's like a middle range Maximus, much less power, but you both get the upside. And so it's so hard to guarantee who's going to benefit the most from it. And so we wanted to hold our Luke Cage here until after this last turn to surprise the opponent with how much additional reach we're going to be able to get. That's going to pop this middle location so drastically. Let's go with the double Hazmat. It also negatively affects all of their cards that are on the board. So let's go with the double Hazmat. We got the Luke Cage on the board. And so Negative Zone should just absolutely slam back in our favor. I assume they have an Ultron somewhere trying to cap out all of the locations. They're not able to play Ultron. I guess they could do something wild like Jeff Ultron. That would cap out here and here. But it's not going to be enough. Is that what they do? Jeff, is this the Ultron? It is. We called it. It's not going to be enough, especially with the Luke Cage giving us the lead in Negative Zone. They're going to fill up the left lane. That buffs up their Dazzler drastically. They have nothing to really elevate the power of those Ultron bots that are sending around the board. There we go. Finally, the Ultron reveals. We get the final grand reveal, and I think we swing all 3 locations. Having the Cerebro is just, especially 2 of them on the board, is just so much power that you're pumping. And we may or may not have needed that crystal, but having that peace of mind of knowing which resources we had, which ones we were going to draw into, I can't advocate for Crystal even in her current state after she was changed, but we will absolutely take the 2 cubes. That is where we're going to go ahead and end the video. Overall, Cerebro 2 is one of those very consistent lists that you're able to put a lot of disruption. You're able to pump a lot of cards and a lot of board presence really easily with things like Mr. Sinister and Brood. And overall, it is incredibly flexible. Sometimes if something derails the Cerebro 2, you just lean on some of your other resources instead. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give it a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.